Change a question, change your life. When it comes to planning your life, I want to get you to learn to ask 3 questions now. And the first one is not, what am I going to do? The question you want to ask yourself is, what do I want? What's my outcome? What's my result? The first one is to get you focused on the target. The target is not the activity. The activity can change. It's what's the result I'm after. If you know exactly what it is you really want, what you desire, what you're really after, clarity is power. The more clear you are and specifically what you want, the faster your brain can get you there. What does it take to successfully create a lasting change in your life? The first step is you got to have a vision for what it is you really, truly want. Something has the power to pull you. Push requires willpower, and willpower never lasts. What will last is having something so exciting, so attractive, something you desire so much that you have a hard time going to sleep at night and you get up early in the morning to rock it and take it to the next level.
Welcome to the Tony Robbins Podcast. You're listening to an episode that's part of a season where we explore the 5 areas of life that many people focus on improving at the start of a new year: health, productivity, personal finance, relationships, and the focus of today's episode, career. Did you know the average American will spend over 90,000 hours at work over the course of their lifetime? And 87% of Americans have no passion for the job they do. The statistics are very clear. We're working our lives away, and the majority of us don't even like what we do. This time of year, it's likely you may have thought about your career and what changes you'd like to make. Maybe you want to ask for a promotion, start your own business, or even change your career path entirely and make the leap into doing something that's more fulfilling to you. No matter where you are in your career, if you're established or just getting started, and what goals you've set for yourself this year, there's one thing that is true. Technology is changing the way we work. And it's changing fast. There's no doubt that technology has made our lives a lot easier in the workplace. For those of you that remember things like fax machines and dial-up internet, you can probably appreciate this. But as the pace of innovation continues to accelerate, many people fear that technology will displace jobs and the workers who can't compete with machines. On the other hand, many argue that it will actually create jobs, opportunities, and entire industries. Regardless of what side of the coin you're on, whether you think AI and automation will create or destroy, it's going to change the fundamental nature of our economy. The things that we're going to do for work, how we build our careers, and how we even define what a career or job is, will shift dramatically. And we need to be prepared and make sure that we're providing as much value in the marketplace as we can so we stay competitive. In this episode, we're exploring the future of work, what it means, and how you can create a career that you love in the wake of technological disruption. You'll hear from Alicia Abate, an expert on the subject, who helps people find fulfillment and freedom in their careers while future-proofing their jobs. But first, here's Tony on how you can stay competitive and provide more value in the market as the world continues to change. He's interviewed by Dan Roth, editor-in-chief at LinkedIn. Here's Tony and Dan.
You give a lot of advice to people who are at the top of their game or trying to reach the top of their game.
Yes.
What kind of advice would you give to someone who's just starting out, someone who's just graduating and needs to know what to do to be successful? They want to be the next Paul Tudor Jones, or
Yes.
they want to be the next Tony Robbins.
Yes.
What do you say?
Well, I think the most important thing is what do you really want? Not who you want to be. You don't want to be Tony Robbins. You want to be Paul. I love Paul. You don't want to be Paul. He's a great role model, to say the least. I love the man because he's one of the greatest contributors I know. What he's done with Robin Hood and what he does with his life personally is extraordinary. But role models should be examples for you, but you got to decide, what do you want to give? What are you here to deliver? I think you got to fall in love with whose lives do you want to touch and through what vehicle. You can't fall in love with your product or your service today. It's going to change. You got to fall in love with the client. And so you got to decide, who do I want to serve? And you got to know more about their needs, their wants, their fears, their desires than they do. And you got to anticipate how to meet those. And you got to remember that technology is going to change it, competition is going to change it, the government's going to change the rules. It's three-dimensional chess. And unless you are constantly striving to be ahead of that path and find a way to add more value, you're going to get eaten up. I mean, what is it? You know, you got 4 out of 100 businesses that make it after 10 years, and 96% fail. So if you're gonna have an advantage, you need to say, what is it I want to do? Now, I would say that you also have to say, like a lot of people say, find your passion. I say you got to find your passion, you got to find your competency, and you got to find the market, right? A lot of people have passion but no competency. And so they'll be struggling a good portion of their life. You got to make sure you match those two. But you also find a market. Where can I serve a group of people? What's a problem I can solve? And that's perhaps scalable in size if you want to do something on scale. Or you got to say, I want to be a great artist, and here's what's going to fulfill me, and here's how I'm going to keep growing. But the common denominator I learned from my original mentor is a man named Jim Rohn. He was a personal development speaker. I remember I first met him, and I had forefathers. We were totally broke. One of the reasons this year I'm feeding 100 million people, I fed 56 million so far myself, and I've got matching funds, so we're up to 82 million people, is I've been feeding people my whole life, 42 million people over the course of my life. But when I was 11, somebody fed my family. We had no food at Thanksgiving, which we wouldn't have starved, but we were gonna have a Thanksgiving treat, and somebody came and took care of us. I tell you that because my fathers were hardworking people, all four of them. They were always broke, they're always struggling. So I met Jim Rohn, I'm like, how is this possible? You know, I can see people that work a third the time my father, and they're wealthy. And my father works his guts out, and we don't have money for food. I mean, how's that possible? Part of it is how that money was spent, you know, abuse and alcohol and things of that nature. But what Jim Rohn taught me was that it's really, in the world, we all have intrinsic value. But in the financial world, it's about how can you become more valuable to people than anybody else? And I think today, you have to anticipate that this is a knowledge workplace now. It is not brawn. It is the capacity to know and to utilize information. It's wisdom to be able to act and produce results faster than anybody else. And if it was me starting my career, I'd be saying, where's the market where the greatest opportunity is that's going to fulfill me and give me a chance to make a difference? And then what skills and tools do I get now, but how do I keep upping my game constantly? Because Rohn taught me, he said, work harder on yourself than you ever do on your job or your business. Because if you can become more valuable, sizably so, you will produce an amazing result. You see people work at McDonald's and work their guts out time-wise. They work hard, but what they're doing, you can teach someone to do with the devices we have these days in about 30 minutes, right, or less. If you see a David Tepper who, you know, gets paid $4 billion or something of that nature, you go, it's so incredibly unfair. Yes and no. You know, when people are getting, you know, a few basis points for their money in a savings account, and this man's getting people a 42% return, and we know what that means in terms of multiplying over time, he's being rewarded for adding massive value. We may not like that value, you may not like what he's doing, but it's adding value. And I think we all have to say, what is my niche that I will love, that I'm competent in, and there's a market for, and then how do I just constantly and never-endingly improve so that I have that cutting edge of being able to give more?
Easy.
Not easy, worth it,
Yeah.
worth it. Because the alternative is settle for a world where you're constantly dropping behind because everything's moving forward and technology's making it happen faster than ever before. And so you will know in Silicon Valley, they used to do annual reviews, now they're doing quarterly reviews. Some people are doing monthly reviews. They're doing one like this, and if somebody's not adding value, they're gone. The world is more competitive than any time in history. So you could say, I don't like it, but the best study of life is how it is. And it feels incredible to constantly grow. If you ask me, what does it take to be fulfilled? Grow or die. You know, if you're not growing in a relationship, the relationship's getting hurt. If you're not growing in terms of your energy, you're getting weaker. If you're not growing in your skill sets, you're gonna fall behind. And if you grow, you have something to give. And I really believe, corny as it sounds, you know, the secret to living is giving is a phrase I wrote in my book when I was 18, when I was really frustrated with my life, feeling that nothing's going in the right direction. I realized I was so focused on what I was doing and what I wasn't getting. I wasn't focused enough on what I was giving. And I think when we give is when we feel most alive. And don't get me wrong, we all can receive and deserve to receive, and I've certainly received. But there's nothing like knowing what you've done makes a difference. And I think that motivates people more than money ever will. Some people money more, but not the majority. The ability to create, to add value, to have autonomy, those are pieces the human spirit grows from. And companies like LinkedIn, and I'm not just blowing smoke your way, because Reid Hoffman's a friend of mine, as you well know. I mean, you guys create a culture like that, and it's one of the reasons you've exploded the way you have and expanded what you're doing.
Here's Alicia as she shares a 3-part framework that you can use to build a fulfilling career in the face of disruption.
When we think about how to create a career that's going to allow us to thrive in the face of all of this disruption, technological disruption being the focus of that, the first and most important thing to understand is that gone are the days of the ladder career. And what do I mean by the ladder career? It's one job, one track. Several years ago, it was literally climbing the corporate ladder, but basically a singular focus in terms of your growth. Even if you switched jobs from company to company, we generally stayed within the same functional area. But as we begin to look at all of this disruption and how to future-proof ourselves, we move over into a model that I call the mosaic model, which is rooted in the things that we value the most, the kind of contribution that we want to create in the world, and the kind of impacts we want to use our lives to create, and piecing those things together in various activities to build what would traditionally be a career in that space. Now that we know that the model has shifted from a ladder career into a mosaic career, how do we actually go about creating it? What are some of the mindset shifts and action shifts that can help us move ourselves there? That three-part framework is mindset, education, and collaboration. And the first component of mindset is this distinction between thinking about your career as a sniper versus thinking about your career as a scientist. Most of us are taught that we need to find one career, one passion, one right job, one right company. And if we don't, then we failed or we're doomed to mediocrity or something even worse. Because the market's shifting so much, moving away from this need to have the one right answer, shifting into a space of being absolutely curious, that of a scientist. As a scientist, let's imagine that we're all going to the South Pole and we're doing some research together. Once we're down there, we're well equipped, somebody's funding our research, we've got all the equipment we need, lots of smart scientists with us, and we may even have some hypotheses about what happens when we get there. But once we're there, we're simply collecting data. There's no right or wrong, there's only information. And so rather than thinking, if I don't get this right the first time, all is doomed, we can ask ourselves, what can I learn from this space and what can I transform it into? The second piece of the mindset component is shifting our thinking about our career in terms of an or way of thinking versus an and way of thinking. And what do we mean by that? In the past, we used to do one job or the other. We were in one functional area or the other. And this mosaic career model includes a whole lot of and. One of my former clients is this amazing woman who has an immigrant story, came to the United States, learned English, got herself through college, got a job that she thought was going to be fantastic and ended up being a soul-sucking desk job. And she had a dream for most of her career, most of her life, to become a chef, to create impact in her community and help bring healthier food habits. So she decides to leave her soul-sucking desk job. She gets herself into the Natural Gourmet Institute and graduates with honors. Working with some of the best natural food chefs in the world. And today, rather than having one specific career, she's a chef. She's working on cookbooks. She's teaching classes. She does private events. So she's created this mosaic around herself that allows her to exercise her talent through various different windows and various different points of focus. As we look at this framework of mindset, education, and collaboration, education is the second component. And how this relates to our mosaic career is that we're shifting away from a job market or a job environment where we're looking at the skills that we have versus the values that we have. We're moving away from the need to follow solely on the path of the things that we're able to do and shifting into a place of what can I utilize the things that I know how to do to create in the world? What kind of impact can I create? How can I fulfill on the things that I value the most? And then secondly, under education, when we look at the shift away from a job search into a world of entrepreneurship. Because here's the deal, the past of work was salaried for most of us, and the future of work is and is going to be entrepreneurial. And this is even if you are inside of a more traditional organization, because companies, large companies, Fortune 500s, and others of similar ilk are requiring that you have the abilities of entrepreneurship in-house even. So even if you do have a salary, you're going to be required to do that. But beyond that, the massive trend toward freelance work. Right now, some of the statistics are saying that somewhere around 34% of people in the US are doing freelance of some kind. That number is expected to go up to 45%. And so as more and more of us, either by choice or by force, are needing to do this kind of freelance work, understanding the tenets of entrepreneurship, and then as we move forward beyond that, entrepreneurship in its most traditional form, creating scalable businesses. So we're moving away from a world where we need to master the skills of interviewing well and moving through a job search and into a world where we need to learn how to do more with less, become incredibly creative, see opportunities perhaps where others don't. And in fact, for those of us who are excited about taking the ride, can create a lot more fulfillment for ourselves, both financially and otherwise. If you are paying attention now and you can see what's coming, rather than waiting and reacting to whatever's happening in the marketplace, you can see it, know what it's going to be, and take advantage of the opportunities that come as a result of disruption. Because frankly, disruption is simply opportunity that looks different than it used to. And finally, collaboration. Collaboration is really where the magic comes in. And finding and creating our own space in the world moves away from networking and into the space of community building. Networking was something that was very transactional. I give you X, you give me something of X value in return. We probably have that exchange one time and never again shall we meet. Versus community building. When we're making a job switch, when we're creating our own business, it's no longer transactional because there's so much disruption occurring out here in the market that we need to connect with people both to contribute to and receive help from. And so as we look for career creation, career transformation, the idea is to connect with other people, add value where you can, and create that interconnected community so that if something happens or as the market continues to get disrupted, you will have a community of people around you who can support you in what you're creating. Additionally, if you are a solopreneur or if you are one of the many millions of people in the world who are freelance workers of some kind, having a strong community of people who have businesses that are interrelated or interconnected to yours can allow you to pitch for bigger contracts, can allow you to get offers to work on contracts that your friends are getting. And so creating this interconnected community to which you're adding value and from which you're learning can really help you thrive. If I could leave something as we're wrapping up this podcast today, one of the things that I would encourage everybody to understand is that this thing that we talk about that is the future, that feels way out here, something that may or may not happen at some point, is actually already happening today. And so the idea is everything that we've shared here with you are strategies and ideas that you can take and implement for yourself today so that you can create the 2020 that you're really looking for.